Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that is teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Andres Vargas, and I learned about him from his participation as a speaker at the 2022 Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers Convention. While he worked as an engineer for some years, he now works as a planner. I don't really know what a planner does, so I'm certainly going to ask him about that. And I'm also going to ask him about his involvement with SHPE, and that's Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers. It's pronounced SHPE, even though the acronym is SHPE. Don't know really how that works, but that's what SHPE it is. And so, of course, I'm going to ask him about public speaking, since that's what I'm always interested in. So welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Andres.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me on the podcast. Really happy.
So from the research I did on you, I saw that you study industrial engineering. What was the motivation to study that degree?
It goes back to right after high school. Just looking to something to do. I remember going to a college fair for my local community college, and they had a bunch of engineering majors there. They had a guy there, I guess he was a professor at the time. He was breaking down a computer. I thought that was really fascinating. I'm kind of a bit of a tech nerd. So initially I started as an electrical engineer, did that for a few years, and then when I transferred over to my four-year university at the University of Central Florida, I kind of was doing it, wasn't really vibing with it, and then asked a few close friends of mine and those who were involved in SHPE when I was a student there, and they kind of pointed me in the direction of industrial engineering because it kind of fit my personality. I got into the first class. I loved it. I was into it. I love the idea about being able to manage different things, being kind of the boss in a little bit of a way, as some of our industrial engineering folks do. And yeah, I've been with it ever since, and it's been kind of one of the best choices I made throughout college.
I noticed that you didn't just stop with getting a degree in industrial engineering. You also got your MBA. So what was the motivation to get that degree?
I didn't want to do engineering again. I attended a few webinars that my company at the time was offering if people were interested in doing a master's, and I just felt like a repetition of what I already did as an undergrad, and I wanted something different. Business was always in the back of my mind. I thought I could have some sort of maybe do really well in it. And it got to a point where I might as well get it done while I'm younger than I am older, before more responsibilities kick in. I did it, and honestly, it was one of the best choices. I did a lot better in my MBA than I ever did as an industrial engineer, as an undergrad. So, and it's got me pretty far. Now that, as you mentioned in the beginning, got me to Disney. So, good choice.
Andres, when we start off in university, we may have plans on what we want to do, or maybe no plans at all. But then by the end of our schooling, hopefully we have some plans what we want to do. When you were done your education, did you end up going into what you planned on going into, or did you go into something completely different?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing about, like, say, for example, Chef, they really help you get your foot into the door with internships and a lot of these industries and these companies. And at the time when I was a student, a big deal was getting into like the aerospace defense industry. That was kind of like the big thing, Boeing, the Lockheeds and Northrop Grumman's and all these things. And I was fortunate enough to get an internship with Northrop Grumman as an undergrad. And as time went on, I just kept building my network during those opportunities. And fortunately, and not a lot of people get to do this, is I graduated with an offer ready to go by the time I graduated. So to answer your question, yes, it was kind of that hope that I would get an opportunity in that type of industry. But as we'll probably get into a little bit later, that obviously changed throughout the course of my career. So yeah.
It was smart of you to build those connections as an intern. I can say I never did any internships when I was in school, which is a regret of mine. But then even when I started working as an engineer, I still didn't really build any sort of connections with anyone. It seemed like every job that I got was kind of happenstance from just applying. You thought I would have gotten the hint after the first job or maybe after the second, but I guess I was a stubborn guy. You were smart. That even as an undergrad, you figure it out. I'm around people that could possibly help me out later in life. So let me build connections with them now, as opposed to, getting further into your career and realizing I have no connection with anybody and I got to create everything from scratch every time.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is too, I wasn't always the best student. So if I got into a position like an internship, I had to make some network because that's the only way I was going to get the next opportunity. And honestly, that offer I ended up getting when I graduated was because I reached out to someone I had interned with as a manager, she pointed me in contact with someone local to me, and bam, interview done. So that really was what helped me get into that position right after college.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to make up for them poor grades somehow. You got some people that are able to graduate with that, close to 4.0 GPA. Maybe they could write their ticket. But for the rest of us, maybe we're the best. School
Yeah.
wasn't exactly. We're the best. We're the best students. We got to make up for it somehow. So even you saying that, it would have made more sense for me to have built networks because my grades weren't the best either. Because man, I struggled.
Yeah.
But Andres, I've also mentioned in the intro that you now work as a planner. You said you worked in engineering for some time, but you transitioned into being a planner. What exactly does being a planner entail, and what made you decide to become one?
Yeah, so my position right now is senior planner for our global integrated facilities planning team at Disney. So essentially what that means is I'm responsible of capturing all the data with all the jobs that are happening throughout the sites throughout the globe for Disney. So for example, if Paris right now is about to launch a big change in their park, so my responsibility is to keep track of some of the stuff going on, such as, all right, are certain rides being covered when it comes to painting, maintenance, all these things? Are those jobs being scheduled? Are they in the list? Are they budgeted? And we have to make sure that we keep that in track. And if there's any changes to that, we have to make sure we're documenting that. But my real responsibility is just making sure that from a yearly basis, we're on track to what we're budgeting, regardless of what the site is. And if we are starting to capture that real life data, where's the variances? Like what's happening? Are we staying on budget? Are we off budget? What's going on? So that's kind of like the main core real responsibility. And then there's obviously little things like here and there of like making sure our documents are being tracked. We have great strategies about how to accomplish our jobs. And yeah, it's just kind of whatever comes in the plate that happens on a day-to-day basis at the parks, we kind of handle. But like I mentioned earlier, my big responsibility mainly is that tracking type of stuff.
How did your background in, well, I guess your degrees in industrial engineering and MBA prepare you for your job as a planner?
Um, well, the big part, and I like to say this as a combo, my experience as an engineer when it came to relationships and communicating with different teams, different backgrounds, different like practices and knowledge, being able to develop that really ability to talk to those people, even if you may not know 100% what they're doing or where that kind of common ground is, allowed me to be able to bring up to Disney like, hey, I have the ability to do this. Um, Even though I work in the aerospace industry, I can bring this here at Disney because that's something that this particular role requires. You're required to talk to people that may not be in the same discipline, but you have to be able to find that common ground. And obviously, dealing with money, dealing with like big picture stuff, the MBA knowledge and the idea of knowing how companies work and how business decisions are made and why they're made, allowed me to be a big fit into this particular role because sometimes we have to suggest like, hey, why are you doing this? Maybe you should use this versus that type of talks. So it was a big combination of more of the experience I've gained with the knowledge base of my degrees that helped me get to this particular position at Disney.
Well, you know what? It's great that they saw that even though you didn't come from the amusement park industry, I suppose, that you had the skills that were required to do the job. Because I mean, how many amusement parks are there? I mean, okay, I'm trying to get a job at Disney. What I had to work at Six Flags before. Damn it, I got I have the skills. Damn it, give me the job. And and they did. And I think another thing is when it comes to just engineering education in general, it's more versatile. I think a lot of people give it credit for. You have, I mean, even since I started this whole podcast and the YouTube channel, I've spoken to so many people that got engineering degrees and then ended up doing things that you wouldn't think somebody with an engineering degree would be doing. And this would be one of them. Actually, one of them, funny enough, she got her degree in civil engineering and now works as a personal stylist.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, help them move their clothes. It's like wow. I mean, you really think about that, but I'm a firm believer in that. You think about when you think of engineers, you think of these technical type people. They want to be in front of their computers. They don't want to talk to anybody. But it's a degree that can take you in so many places because ultimately, what is engineering? It's just solving problems, and who doesn't want their problem solved?
Yeah, and I think a lot of things that people don't think about is it's all about communication too. And I think that's where I was able to leverage look at what I've done, ignore the background of the industry. I can take what I've done in this particular aspect and apply it to your industry by doing it this way. And I think one of I hope in times to come, schools begin to really educate, and then some do. I know there's a lot of programs that begin to teach engineering students, in particular, leadership roles, communication, working with teams, and building those relationships. So when you come into the workforce, you have some experience that now you can bring into the table and say, look, I can now do all these things that you may not have thought I could do just because you thought I was an engineer.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to get rid of that stigma. We're just a bunch of eggheads that just want to look at our computers all the damn time.
Right.
Putting a bunch of stickers on the computer, on the laptop. I don't even got stickers on my laptop. I don't even know nothing about. That's like the software geeks. Not me. I look at medical devices. I got a bunch of stickers too. Someone sent me some stickers. I ain't putting them nothing. My computer's pristine.
The new one, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I mentioned that I learned about you from you being a speaker at the 2022 SHIP convention. What got you involved with SHIP?
Long story short, when I was an undergrad at UCF, there was this big sign that said free food at this general body meeting. I don't know what it was. I went in, ate, and then I just got blown away with the essentially the opportunities that it presented, of like building, again, like I mentioned, that leadership type of roles, the ability to work with others, the communication stuff, and the idea of, I know I have to get internships now. Okay, how do I do that? And then they provided opportunities like these conferences and conventions for you to go out there and network. And with time, I met a lot of great people. Some of my closest friends came from SHIP. And little by little, I just started getting more involved in leadership roles. I became my chapter president at one point. Once I graduated, we had started a professional chapter. I eventually became president of that. And then with time, my involvement and my experience, I figured, hey, why not jump into the regional role that I'm in right now, which is regional vice president for the region that I'm in right now. But yeah, I enjoy being able to give back to the community in some sort of way outside of work. If there's anything I can do with my experience, given, like, again, I wasn't the best student, so being able to show that you can succeed despite that is something I always like to tell students, because once they don't have a good GPA, they immediately assume that's it, they're done. Well, it may be harder, but there is a way, and I hope to be that kind of example that there is a way. So.
I commend you for being willing to even admit these type of things, because oftentimes when we don't do that well in school, it may be something we want to keep to ourselves because we don't want to be judged by others. Well, this person had a poor GPA, they can't be that great. Well, they weren't that great a student. What makes us think they'll be a great worker? But the idea, that you were willing to even say anything to these people, just it gives them hope that, just like you said, just because you don't have a great GPA doesn't mean that's the end for you.
And believe me, I didn't share it a lot during school. I waited until I finished and made something of myself to begin to tell people that. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like I'm established now. I got some years under my belt. Yeah, if you want to judge me because I had a poor GPA all them years ago, so be it. But it's not that big a deal now. You mentioned that you're the regional vice president of your region. What I guess are your goals in taking on that role?
Well, we were just getting out of COVID when I ran, and we lost a lot of communication with a lot of the chapters in the region, and there was just that vibe that the community was a little bit broken apart a little bit because of that, what had happened. So my initial goals with me and a few others that ran for the team that we're in, we're just like, let's just bring it back. Let's bring back that community sense, that sense that we're all in this together type of vibe. And once we do that, we begin to provide what we feel is important. Now having worked a few years, I kind of have been in the industry, and now being in a different industry, I kind of now have a knowledge base of like, all right, these are the do's, these are the don'ts. And obviously just mentoring the leaders in our region about how to really be an effective leader nowadays, post-COVID, dealing with teams and dealing with all these things. So again, it was mainly about building a community. And I'm very proud to say I'm coming up to the end of my term now that, we've done that. I mean, there's a lot of evidence, especially at the conventions, of like the vibe that people now have gotten within our region, which I'm super proud of, and I can leave 100% happy with.
You mentioned leadership, and to be a great leader, at least in my opinion, you have to be a great communicator. And when I first started this podcast and YouTube channel, it really was about the public speaking journey of people with technical backgrounds and what they did to get better in just communicating with others. communicating with others, public speaking, generally something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
No, man, I remember doing those speech communication classes where you had to do the speeches in front of everybody. And I was the guy who was nervous and my leg would shake and I would stutter. It was the whole mess. And it got what helped me get through that was just being involved with SHPE and having these leadership roles. You had to be upfront with people. You had to talk to people. And I think what I felt really helped me in particular is a lot of the speakers I've met throughout the years and I've seen, they speak well, they present themselves really well, but I never felt a connection with the individual because I felt like that was a persona. It wasn't really the genuine person sometimes. So when I remember the very first presentation I ever did for my chapter after I graduated, I went in, I was going to talk about the company I'm working with, the basic stuff that we're going to be there recruiting at the convention that particular year. And halfway through the presentation, I was just looking at the audience. I was like, I don't feel like I'm connecting with them. So I just kind of threw that aside. And that was actually the very first time I actually brought up my bad GPA. And I just started being real with them. Like, hey, this is what I did. This is how I got to this point. This is what you probably should do. And I remember at the end of this meeting, usually at these things, people go up to the speaker, ask them questions. And I was expecting people to come and ask me about my company. No, they're asking me about my experience, my journey, my time, all these things. And that's really where it clicked for me, which is like, if I'm ever going to public speak, even till this day, I'm going to be more honest. And obviously, I'll have my professional voice and how I project and all these things, but there has to be a level of authenticity in how I speak because that's how people are going to buy into me. That's how people are going to buy into what I'm trying to tell them or to teach them or to sell them. Um, but yeah, I just feel like nowadays people are starting to realize you got to be a little bit more authentic because I mean people who are great speakers, but when they get off the stage, they're not as approachable. They're not as probably friendly or open than they probably seem to be on stage. I try not to be that way. I try to like you're gonna see me off and on the stage, hopefully the same as you can imagine. So
Yeah, you know what? I think you're absolutely right about that. Just the idea of being yourself on the stage. I mean, what else are you supposed to be? I mean, you're supposed to be somebody else. I mean, ultimately, a carbon copy is never as good as the original anyway. So
mm,
it's in your best interest to just be the best version of yourself. And when you were talking about when we first started giving presentations and your legs shaking and stuttering, it kind of made me think about my first presentations. I didn't necessarily have a leg shake or a stutter, but for me, it was profuse sweating. So it was,
oh,
it was embarrassing. I mean, it looked like I
right,
just came out the shower. It's just pouring all over me. And now what I do is I wear sweaters. Sweaters hide sweat really well.
yeah, for sure,
I have to make sure that the room is well air conditioned because then
yeah,
you're gonna be in a hot room with this sweater on in the summertime, and then you're gonna be sweating just because you got the sweater on. I was sweating already because of the presentation. Now I'm sweating because of the presentation and the sweater. This doesn't make no damn sense.
yeah,
But yeah, man, I totally take your point of the fake personas too. I mean, God knows I've sat through a number of presentations. Not only that the persona is fake, but the person might have been a great presenter, but then they get off the stage and then someone would ask you, what did they talk about? And you have no clue. But you say, well, I felt good after the presentation. They made me feel really nice. But damn it, I ain't coming for a feeling. I came here to get some information, especially someone like myself. I go to presentations oftentimes with a paper and a pen, and I write down things that they say that I could potentially use for myself. And
mm,
if at the end of the presentation that paper is empty, then damn it, what was the point of me sitting there? I could have been doing something else. Oh, but they made me feel good. They were a great presentation, a great presenter. No, I don't feel good. My paper is empty.
I mean, that's the key too. Like as authentic as you try to be, you got to make sure you get the goal of what you're trying to present. Like if people leave with nothing, what did you do? You just want them to like you? No, that's kind of not the purpose, and you got to give them what they need. So,
No question. Do you have a process for putting your presentations together? And if so, what is it?
um, I'm not a big fan of PowerPoints. I like people to be able to be here and like be able to listen. Like I'll have my slides if I need to for whatever reason, but my prep is really about all right, what do I need to cover? Like what do I need to hit? Kind of like I mentioned a little bit earlier. What do I want people to leave this feeling with? Like did they know something, they learn something, did they feel better about something? Those are my tip goals. I don't like writing down what I'm gonna say because I feel like if I'm too rigid, then I lose the authenticity part of it, and that actually happened at this convention where I was presenting. I was the first speaker at our national meeting where like our CEO is gonna talk about the state of the organization, all that stuff. And it's very formal. There's very rehearsal process. You got to send in what you're gonna say. They're gonna put it up on the prompter stuff. There's a whole process. And during the rehearsal, I got nervous because I was like reading very like looking at each monitor, reading, and I was just like, I'm gonna mess this up. Like I'm gonna be too focused on the process than the delivery. But as soon as the actual event started, like I was in it, man. I was like, all right, I know what I'm gonna say. Okay, I'll look at this for reference, but I'm gonna go straight into what I need to say. And it came out better than the rehearsal ever probably could have given me, you know. So for me, it's about like what am I trying to deliver, and if I can do that, just go. And I feel confident enough nowadays, and all the times I've public speak that I can deliver that without worrying about am I gonna mess up or are people gonna laugh? Like I don't worry about that stuff anymore. It's gotten to the point where it's natural at this point.
Yeah, I hear you on on the point on slides. Oftentimes, when it comes to those, they can be a crutch for a lot of the presenters because they end up reading the slides as opposed to trying to engage the people that they're actually speaking to. And it's really difficult to engage people when you're not looking at them because you're looking at the slides. And then not only that, but people, oh man, so many conference talks I used to go to when I worked as an engineer, they would have so much text on those slides that people would just read the slides and they wouldn't listen. So when you minimize the amount of text on the slide, now you're eliminating that option for them to read. They're either going to listen or they're going to ignore you. And hopefully you're engaging enough that they actually listen. And because there's less words on the slide, you have to look at them now, or else where else are you looking at your shoes?
Right. And the thing too is being in my position I'm in with Shep is, and going back to what your question about like what are my goals is I don't want people to feel like they're statistics or they're just people that I'm trying to deliver a message to. It's more like I'm with you. I'm one of you. I've been there. I know what it's like. I'm talking to you like face to face. Like I'm not here to pretend I'm this and or that. I'm with you type of thing. And that goes into like I'm not here to bore you with a lecture. I'm here to talk to you. And I think that's what people feel more connected with. Like, all right, he's talking to me. He's not trying to deliver something. So
Yeah, I hear you on that too. You know, you mentioned before that your leg used to shake and you used to stutter. Hopefully you've gotten that under control. So hopefully, so if that is the case, what did you do to be able to manage your nerves?
I mean, it was just the experience and confidence over the years that the more and more I did it, the less and less it became an issue. Like less I worried about it, you know. Um, I guess it just more became confident. Like I wasn't trying to pretend to be smart. I wasn't trying to like that initial speech in that first class where my leg was shaking. I was trying to be funny. I was trying to do this. And I was like, nah, once you start getting rid of those self expectations, you start realizing you just need myself. And if you do it right, people are gonna buy into it, whether they like it or not. And that's it. That's all you can worry about. And once I got rid of that pressure, I was like, yeah, okay, we're done. I mean, I'll get nervous. Don't get me wrong. There are parts of like if I'm presenting to 900 people, for example, there's the nerves of like, all right, let me make sure, like, all right, wow, there's a lot of people. But then I just go, all right, doesn't matter. Let me just say what I gotta do in the mic, and I'll be fine. So
Yeah, you know, it's funny you mentioned about when you tried to be funny, and then you might get nervous about that, especially if you don't get the laughs. It's like, damn it, this was supposed to be funny. Why are they not laughing? And then you go into a tailspin in your own mind. It's like, damn it. And then the rest of your presentation, you're thinking about when you were supposed to be funny and they didn't laugh. And now I don't know what to do with the rest of my presentation. What about all the other parts of the presentation where I was supposed to be funny? They damn well better laugh. Or else I'm gonna be pissed off this presentation. But yeah, I fully hear you about that. And then also the idea of giving these presentations and just kind of having to be in the moment and not taking yourself too seriously at the time, because then that's when we really get in our heads, and also and not only that, but just knowing why we're there. Like we're there to impart a message. We're there to hopefully that people take in that message. And nerves are just a sign that you care about people taking in that message. So it's not something that ever should really go away. I mean, if they do, I think it's just a sign that you don't really care about the outcome.
right, right. And I think one perfect example of that is during this convention that just happened, each region has their own regional meeting, which is like the big event where all the members come and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. You can talk about the status of the region or whatever. For me, I go, what makes me nervous is like I don't want people to walk out of that meeting from our region feeling like they were lectured. I want them to feel like, listen, you've had a great conference. Come, we're gonna celebrate. We're gonna give awards. We're gonna acknowledge you guys. We're gonna have fun because I want this to be a break for you. And that's where my nerves come, is to make sure we achieve that. But during the process of it, right, it's about getting down to work, getting it done. And like you said, it is about being in the moment, because I remember there are times where I don't anticipate to say like a long speech. I don't prep for it, but the energy that I get from the audience, which is something I really strive for when I public speak, is what feeds me into what I'm going to say. So it makes it much more believable because it's in the moment. It's authentic in that moment. And I think I'm proud to say that that's something that I took away from this past conference. Is like, I'm really glad I have that mentality for public speaking, because my best version of public speaking comes from those particular moments where it's authentic and legit. And people were asking me, did you prep that? I'm like, no, man, I was on the spot, dude. Like I was not ready to prep for any type of speech, but yeah, it just happens in the moment.
Yeah, and especially with a conference like SHIP, I'm guessing a lot of the people who are in the audience are students, and you said that you don't really want to lecture to them, and I'm sure they appreciate it, because when they're in school, that's all they get is lectures. So now I got to leave my school to travel to this conference to get more lectures. Damn it, I could have got lectures at home, and I didn't have to get on a plane. So I'm glad.
Yeah. And some of these other presentations during these events are lectures too, like giving them a lot of information. It's like, I'm more like, listen, you got all that. Want to have a good time. Let's have some fun, and let you feel welcome instead of feeling like, all right, I'm gonna try to teach you this type of thing.
Yeah. So for anyone who is listening or watching this conversation, what would your number one tip be for them to become more effective as a public speaker?
The first thing obviously is knowing what you know. Don't obviously go up there pretending to be something you're not, or trying to sound smarter than you are. If you don't know, you don't know. Just say what you know. I think that's a big error a lot of people try to do, is they try to be more than what they are. No, be what you are. And that's kind of goes back to why I always say I try to be authentic and I say only what I know. And if I don't know, I have the confidence to say, listen, at this moment, I just don't know the answer. But I will go and find out what that answer is. So my first thing is I always try to tell people, be yourself. And part of that is knowing what you know. Don't be more what than you are. Because it can kind of come off sometimes. You're gonna go, is that person really know what they're talking about? It just seems like they're winging it and they're faking it. And that can sometimes come off. So
Man, I feel like you're calling me out, Andres. That is exactly what I used to do when I tried to give presentations, because I wasn't confident enough to say I don't know, because I figured I'm the engineer on this project. People are looking to me to be a subject matter expert, so I better know the answer to all questions. So often, I mean, in the event that I didn't know, I would try to BS an answer. But every now and then I get called out on it, and someone in the audience would be a bit more knowledgeable than I thought they were. And then they call me out on it. And I'm like, no, you thought I was sweating before?
that's the thing too. Like, it goes back to why I felt more confident talking about like bad grades and all these things, because people are gonna go, listen, this guy's being legit. He's not trying to pretend to be smarter than anybody. It's like more like, listen, I was dumb. I made poor choices. I did this. I did that. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And if you buy into it, great. I find that that's what's always worked throughout the years, is people are more willing to believe someone like that than they are someone trying to pretend to be something better. It's like you're speaking to a version of yourself years ahead of you, who've gone through what you're doing and they're already there, type of thing, you know?
Yeah, it's like some Back to the Future stuff. I like
Yeah.
that. You know what, Andres, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
LinkedIn, obviously, Andres Vargas. That's it. You can probably find me, Shep, Region 7, throughout that. I actually did start a scholarship not too long ago. We just went live this week, actually. It's called SHPE Scholarship. It's live now. So if you want to apply, you're an undergrad in STEM, by all means, it's free money. It's not hard at all. But you can find that through my LinkedIn as well. But LinkedIn is my main goal when it comes to all this stuff.
Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson, founder of Teach the Geek, and you can learn more about Teach the Geek at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thank you, Andres.
Thank you, Neil.